Well, hey guys, what's going on? It's been a while since I've done an update, and I wanted to do an update. So obviously by now Sarah's home, right? Or I should say, she's been home and now she's off again. She was home for about 2 weeks before she had to head out to Washington for her first post, her first assignment out at Joint Base Lewis McChord. They're near the southern end of Tacoma, Washington. Yeah, looking forward to heading out there. Looking forward to. It should be different, I've lived in the South for a very long time, but I will tell you that while I may have grown up in West Atlanta, I was born in Maryland, little place they call Silver Spring. The deeper you go into the South, the more southern you get. The more I really feel out of place and uncomfortable. I'm just not there's some cool stuff about living in the South, and I'm more of a southerner than the me that grew up in West Atlanta, like now, and I am definitely a conservative. I'm a conservative, heterosexual, Caucasian male, so that's still somewhat popular status to have down here in the South. I realize out west in some places that's not considered as cool, but that's okay. We're going to show them folks out there that we can move past those things. We can move past those classifications and see that we can still all just have some good times and great oldies there. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to Seattle, man. I'm a Seahawks fan. I don't follow the pro sports stuff very much at all, but I love to occasionally peek in on two things, right? One, my wife's home advantage there. My wife's college, Ole Miss. I do like to check in on them once in a while, and the Seahawks, because my wife's stepfather, huge Seahawks fan. Him and my mother-in-law, big Seahawks fan. One of my good friends out in Washington is a big Seahawks fan. So, sometimes it's good to just join the club, right? So I've followed them for a few years. They're pretty cool. I just a little team. I'm not like playing fantasy football and I'm not like that into it, but I watch a few games. Anyway, so she's out there because she had to be there by the 19th, and it was harder this time, It was definitely harder to say goodbye because it's like, oh man, I finally got my wife back. Hey, we're finally home together at the same time here for more than a couple of days. When she came home in between basic and AIT, I didn't sleep well because I only had her for a couple of days, right? She came home, it was like Friday. So it was like a Friday afternoon by the time we got back, and then I had to have her back by Sunday afternoon. And so I didn't sleep well those 2 nights because I was already thinking in my mind, like, man, I got to take her back. She's going to be gone. Like, oh, man, so it was a little better this time, but it was a little worse because it was kind of like it was just long enough to get used to being back home. And then, we got to turn around and fly out to Joint Base McChord. But she got there. She met her sponsor, who seems to be a really cool sergeant. I just know what she told me. I haven't met the guy yet or anything, but it turns out that in about a month he leaves for a new command, a new posting or whatever. And it sounds like he's going to be a little bit of an upgrade. It's going to be what they call the NCO IC, or like the NCO in charge or NCO in command. Either way, it sounds like a bit of a bump up where he's going. It turns out that his position, or him, that's who Sarah's replacing. So it's kind of some big shoes to fill. She's a little overwhelmed. But you know how it is when you start any new job, especially any job that's like, hey, we're going to train you. You get out of training, and you get into what we call a production environment, and it's always a struggle, right? There's always that gap in what you were taught in training and what's really going on in production, right? That's always there. The Army is absolutely no exception to that. So I've been doing IT for 20 years, and I've had my share of jobs that barely lasted more than a year or two. Us millennials, what can I say? We job hop. But anyways, my point is, I've had to do that a lot. I know the feeling. I know the fog of war that exists in the mind when you start in that job and you're like, oh my gosh. But you do reach a point where you hit like critical mass, where all of a sudden stuff starts clicking more and more, faster and faster. And you look back and you think, man, I feel like I know this stuff so well. I feel like I really have a good handle on what I'm doing. But then you look back and you realize that you've only been there maybe a month or two. And you can look back how, like on a particular date, you're like, oh man, just this many weeks ago, I was still trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. So it does get better. It just takes a little bit. It's hard to get over that hump. But anyway, so she's out there, and one of the reasons I'm still here is we're trying to do two things. We are waiting on her BAH back pay, so her housing allowance hasn't come through yet, and that's kind of a problem, because imagine being hired for a job, like a salaried position, and then imagine for almost 6 months missing about a fourth of your pay, almost. Somewhere between, almost a fourth. Imagine that not being there, what that would do to you financially as far as paying bills, and in this case having to move, because we're doing what they call PCS move, and so the Army does cover the cost of moving our goods out there. They covered the cost of her transportation out there, but we still have to get myself and our animals out there, and that ain't free. However, here's the thing. We could do it ourselves. If we had the money up front, we could take it upon ourselves to hire a moving company if we wanted to. We could, and they reimburse you for a certain amount. I've heard a lot of people say that if you do it right, you can actually end up pocketing money because they reimburse you X amount. They reimburse you, however much for this, that, and the other. And if you, anyway, so it's possible that if you play your cards right and you're shrewd enough in your spending, that you could potentially do a DIY move, a do-it-yourself kind of move thing, and still get there. So we opted not to do that. Here's the problem. So there was some confusion over a destination address, which we didn't have. Because we don't have the back pay, because we're not getting that BAH yet, there's an extra form that my wife has to fill out for renting on-base housing, because they basically, I want to say they deduct that from your BAH, but it's really not that, because the thing is you think, but magically, no matter what you rent, it always equals exactly what your BAH is. I mean, you're telling me that if you're an E1 with no dependents versus an E4 with dependents, there's a huge difference in the amount of BAH you're getting, but yet you could rent the same building in terms of the same housing area, the same, you could be in a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath right next to that E4, and somehow you're both living in on-base housing and you're not having to pay rent, but you're not getting your BAH. You've sort of waived that in lieu of the free rent. So, yeah, I'm not sure how they do it, because the way the paperwork words it almost sounds like they do deduct it from your BAH. And I'm like, well, that's weird, because then what if it's more than your BAH? What if it's less? Because, again, not everybody gets the same. Even 2 E4s, if you take one without dependents, they're going to make a little less for their BAH than one with. So it's really weird. And, of course, that varies based on not just rank and dependents, but also whether what zip code you're in. So there was a waiting list for on-base housing. We had looked at the idea of trying to find off-base housing that was a little less than that BAH, or a little more. I mean, let's just throw a number out there, right? Let's say you're getting like $2,500 a month. That's not what we're getting for BAH, but let's just say we were, right? Let's just imaginary numbers here. And let's say you find a place to rent for $2,600 a month. Okay, well, that's still pretty good, because technically you're only paying $100 above and beyond your BAH, right? So that's pretty good. That's the way that works out, because your base pay is covering other things and all that. The way that works out is essentially like there's extra money that does nothing but cover your rent. You have to pay $100 plus utilities. I don't think you can rent a cardboard box under the overpass for $100 a month, okay? Maybe a really crappy But anyway, so there's some ins and outs. There's a bit of math to have to figure out here, but we decided to just take our chances on the waiting list. We have ended up finding a townhouse that should be available by November at the latest. It wasn't our first choice. It wasn't necessarily the housing that would have been, because it's a townhouse and there was some standalone housing available based on her rank. And I was actually really impressed. I really thought it looked nice. It would have been a step up from this place even, really. But waiting lists and all that jazz, right? So we've got that. The problem is we got to have a temporary address to live at until that's ready, because we have signed the notice to vacate, and the apartment has basically given us 30 days from the date of her orders, her hard orders, which was I want to say that was dated on like the 8th. Was it? Let me see what day. Basically, whatever day it was that she graduated. Yeah, Thursday the 8th. So when she graduated. So they said, okay, we're going to just date it like 30 days after that. That's when you have to be out. We're going to prorate October's rent for you, so you're going to pay like 8 days of that. So here's the problem. When we signed up for that PCS move, we did not yet have a destination address. In fact, Sarah was still here. She had just graduated AIT. I didn't have the time to take off work, and because we didn't have the BAH or anything else for travel, we couldn't really afford to fly or drive all the way out to Washington and spend days out there trying to track down and figure out housing. That just was not an option for us. Just the logistics of that, it just wasn't feasible. I know that from an outside perspective, if you don't look at anything else, you're just like, okay, how do you do this thing? Okay, well, that's what you need to do, right? Somebody needs to go out there in advance and check all that. But, if you've looked at the price of gas lately, or a plane ticket lately, or really anything from a gallon of gas to a loaf of bread to a hotel room, you probably noticed everything's gone up. In fact, in August, inflation hit 8.5%. So we found out like yesterday or the day before that because we didn't put a destination address, they never submitted our thing to move. Because we were sitting here for like a week and a half, like, why have they not told us whether? Because what it is when you set the move up, you request a date. And in this case, we requested September 26th. And we just sort of said, hey, this is what we want. Let us know if this is doable. And we're thinking, man, it shouldn't be taking this long, right? I mean, they got these guys, for lack of a better word, they're on retainer. So it should just simply be a matter of looking at who's in our area as far as the moving companies that they use and who's available, and then bam, here you go. Or say, no, we can't do it then, but, So, yeah, it turns out they never submitted, they didn't have a destination address. So they're saying that it has to be a minimum of, the requested date has to be a minimum of 3 weeks out. So if I submitted that request today, the soonest they could potentially be here to pack and move me, or move our stuff rather, is 3 weeks out. And that's a problem because our notice to vacate has October 8th as the date that the keys get handed in. And as a matter of fact, if you are in the area and you look online right now for Seaside Grove at Myrtle Beach Apartments, you would see Apartment O for Building 159 is available. Or, well, you'd see there's a unit available. I don't think they actually specifically, have this particular one, but basically as far as the apartment complex is concerned, this unit's available for somebody to rent as soon as it becomes available. A few days to probably clean and touch everything up, but other than that, pretty shortly thereafter. So that's kind of an issue. So we're trying to figure that out. We do have a place that we're going to rent. She's working on the application now. It's a townhouse. Not as nice as what we really wanted, but Sarah's working on that application, so we can use that for our address once that goes through. It'll be available November at the latest. Might be available sooner because they might be able to actually just have to do a little bit of cleaning and some stuff over a few weeks and then say, there you go. We'll wait and see. There's an extra step that she's got to take, like a whole other form that has to be filled out because she's not getting her BAH yet. That does complicate things, so she's got her sponsor, which is the guy she's going to actually replace. He's getting ready to head over to bigger and better things. He's moving on in about a month, and she'll take his place there on base. So it's kind of interesting. She's got to take some forms. It's got to go get signed by the unit commander, and there's some other stuff she's got to talk to finance with. But, we're getting the ball rolling, right? We're getting somewhere other than training just saying, hey, you need to file another pay inquiry. And those pay inquiries, it's about like saying, hey, Well, you know what? It's about like taking this mug and saying, hey, you know that 50-gallon tank over there of water? Or no, let's make it more realistic. See that 500-gallon tank of water over there? I'm going to empty it out one coffee cup at a time. You know how useful that would be, right? That's about how useful a pay inquiry is. Or about as useful as a JPEG would be to Helen Keller, for you geeky friends out there that know what a JPEG file is. So, anyways, that's what's going on. I'm here. We're still trying to figure stuff out because here's the thing. Myself, the cat, the dog, and our vehicles, we've got to have her BAH back pay and her bonus in order to be able to afford to get all of that out there. I've got some Pelican-style cases that are going to be ordered and on the way soon for her computer. There we go, her computer and then mine. The difference is hers will go with our stuff, right, when it gets packed and moved. I just want it in a protective hard case with foam so it's protected, waterproof, all that good stuff, ruggedized. Mine, however, will go with me. It will go with me on the plane as my checked bag. And we're fully prepared that if we have to shell out some money for an extra checked bag or 3, then we'll do that. But, Brownie will go where they put pets, and Littlefoot will probably go up front in the cabin with me. Brownie will probably be given Benadryl because he needs to chill the hell out. I love you, dog. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. We're still in a time crunch, though. We're not sure how we're going to do the move. We're going to see once she gets all that stuff taken care of and we officially have the rent application filled out, the lease application filled out, we can list that townhome as our destination address. So then we can talk to the movers, see what the date is. Then once we have that date, we can talk to the apartment complex and say, hey, pretty please, can we get an extension on the move out for that, right? So, and it's killing me because I want to get the hell out of here and go be with my wife, man. I hadn't seen her much in the last 6 months, and this doesn't help because there's only so much I can do, right? There's people that she needs to talk to on base. There's forms she's got to fill out. There's websites she's got to log in to set stuff up on that I can't access, that I can't do. It's beyond my ability. I can't talk to the unit commander and get things set up. That's all on her. So that's where we are. Yeah, it's a mess. Yes, the Army dropped the ball. And if you know me, my mentality, what do I always say, right? If I did my job the way you just did yours, would my boss be happy or would I be looking for a job? I want to preface this by saying I love the Army. I'm so proud of my wife being part of this prestigious organization and the training that they offer. And there are many men and women soldiers out there that have every right to be proud about what they do and the organization they serve. But the people we have dealt with, the little subsection, you got like the whole Army, and you have the little subsection that we've been dealing with, those people, if they worked where I worked, they'd all be fired by now. You would all be looking for jobs. I'm just saying. That's just the cold, hard truth. Any organization, you have to inspect what you expect, right? And if you don't, as the person in charge or as the person in command, if your standards are not being met or if these standards are not being met and you're not inspecting that to make sure they are, that's on you. That's just organizational leadership 101, period. Anyways, that's my opinion, and I'm, as usual, just throwing it out there, and you can agree, you can disagree, you can hate me, you can love me, you can like me, you can disagree with me, you can scratch your head and go, what the hell, man? But either way, that's my opinion along with where we stand and what's going on, and yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.